All right, you are live.
All right, so it says we're live. So welcome everyone to our first City of Annapolis Environmental Commission uh, meeting of 2024. So we have haven't met for a couple months, so it's good to see everyone's faces again and to kick off the new year. We have an exciting agenda, and we'll do a roll call shortly. But just to recap what we have ahead of us tonight, we're going to hear about the City Dock project. I'm sure everyone's read about and heard about. We'll hear from Mr. Burr Vogel, we're very thankful to have him here tonight. We'll have, after we hear from him, we'll get into some more of our kind of admin business and then some other ongoing business from city staff, assuming either Jackie or Racine is able to be here. So with that, I'm Jeremy Hansen. I'm chair and I am a resident of Ward 5. I'll just kind of go around on the order I see on my screen, starting with Kathy.
Hi, Kathy Welker. Good to see everybody. Happy New Year. Also, Word 5.
I'm sorry. Is everyone else hearing? Did anyone else hear Kathy? Or was it just me?
I heard her.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, I apparently did not set up my audio the way I thought, but everyone's hearing me since
Yes. Yep.
Well, let's just carry on with the roll call and then I'll troubleshoot. Alicia
Hi, I'm Alicia. I am in Ward 7.
and Bill,
Bill O'Leary, Commissioner, Ward 2.
Sarah,
Sarah Oliver, Ward 2.
Marianne,
Marianne Marbury, Ward 1.
Jenny. Oh, you're muted.
Jenny Janice, Ward 6.
And our esteemed vice chair.
Yeah.
All right, that's it for commission members currently online. And Mr. Burr Vogel, we'll go ahead and just turn it over to you to introduce yourself and get underway.
I am Burr Vogel, Public Works Director. And I'll start sharing my screen. All right. I was asked to come on and talk to you all about primarily about the resilience. It is a resilience project, so I wanted to talk about the resilience approaches and then also a little bit about the environmental aspects of the project. So I'll start with resilience. We're dealing with water kind of in two main categories. One is tidal flooding, where the tide rises and we get inundated in a couple of places, sometimes through the storm drains and sometimes by either overtopping our bulkheads or seeping up between the bulkhead and the parking lot. That in the case of the Susan Campbell Park area. So dealing with that tidal flooding is pretty simple. At least the overtopping part, you just build a physical barrier between the land that we're trying to protect and the tides, and that's what this schematic represents. The City Dock Park is an elevated park, so in that area we'll be using primarily fixed barriers. The surface elevation is at 6.5 above sea level, and our protection level is to elevation 8. So for the most part, you'll see in that part of the park little knee walls, 1.5 feet high. And a quick note about our elevations. These are in NAV 88. That's kind of the surveying and engineering datum that is commonly used, which can be a little bit confusing because when we think about tides, we're typically talking about mean low water, and that's what the weather reports The news reports those tide levels. So to go from NAV to mean low water, you just add 0.77, or just, for the purposes of what we're talking here tonight, 0.8 is a good way to round up. So what we see here is a +8 protection, or an elevation of something that's really 8.8. Make sense? Okay, so moving left down towards Craig Street and Randall Street, here we're primarily going to be using some deployable barriers, and these would be vertically rising or flipping up. And then coming around, that continues all the way down. Hopefully you can follow my cursor along Alex Haley. And, oh, wait, using the wrong screen. You cannot follow my cursor. Let's do this one. Yeah, here we go, the hand. Coming around to Alex Haley. And here where the Alex Haley story wall will have flood barriers that sit on top of the wall. And these could be either deployable. I'm starting to lean towards something that we manually install in this area. Then when we get further to the southeast, starting at the chop tank, in front of the chop tank, we're going to extend the bulkhead from where it is now at the Donner. It ends at the Donner parking lot, and that bulkhead will be extended about 350 feet to the southeast, to right in front of the Fleet Reserve, where it will tie into the Annapolis Waterfront Hotel. The last little piece of this barrier system to button up is what we do at the Annapolis Waterfront Hotel. This blue line could continue further. I'd be kind of looking for the hotel to fund that portion, or we could do some protection over at Compromise Street. Any questions about what I've shown here so far? Okay. The more challenging piece is actually how we deal with rainwater, storm drains, storm water. When it rains really hard and the tide is high, you can kind of see from this picture that water would not be able to flow out through our storm drains at a high tide. And so you have to have a pumping system that deals with that. And this is a conceptual schematic of how we're doing that for our upstream drainage areas, things that storm drains that are at elevation 6 or above. That water will be captured into a new watertight storm drain, and then flow under pressure from gravity out. And it'll, since the storm drains are higher than the level of any normal high tide, it's very rare that we see a tide greater than 5, then that storm water would not need to be pumped. But for our lower elevation storm drains and around City Dock, this is about 25 or 30 acres where the storm drains are lower than elevation 6. We need to provide alternate paths. So one is, when we have a high tide condition like this, all the water would end up in pumps and be discharged here. But if the tide was low, we'd have the pumping capacity, but also a gravity flow path that sort of replicates what we have now when it rains hard at Newman Street by the Fleet Reserve. Water just flows over the surface and straight out into Ego Alley. Well, we don't really want water flowing over the surface, and in fact, we're building these larger bulkheads, so that path is no longer available to us. But what we'll do is just build additional outfalls. And then to deal with the situation that we see here, where water can flow backwards, reverse flow through our storm drains and flood us behind our bulkheads, we'll be putting in check valves, one-way valves, so the water can only flow out, cannot flow back in. Oh, the Zoom toolbar is blocking my ability to switch menus. So what I wanted to show here was really the analysis we did for the project to decide on the protection levels, and this is important for both dealing with stormwater as well as the tidal barriers. We can see a trend here over time of about 4 inches per decade of sea level rise. That might accelerate over the next 30 or 40 years to 5 inches per decade. So we wanted to, I'm actually missing the slide I wanted to have here that projects this out to 2060, but you can imagine from where we are now, 40 years or so, we'd be looking at about 18 inches, another 1.5 feet on top of our current flooding. So the level of protection that we're buying with that 8-foot tidal protection system, all those solid barriers, it's basically, if Isabel were to happen in 2050, we'd be protected. Beyond 2050, an Isabel level of hurricane storm surge, we could still get flooding, but we'll be protected against nuisance flooding well into the end of the century. Yeah, by nuisance flooding, I mean the kind of things that we had 2 weeks ago. Here I'm showing some of the stormwater modeling efforts. This is really showing that at a tide of 2.5, which is something we experience maybe 50 or 100 hours a year right now, and we got a very, very strong storm, a 10-year storm, that would mean about a little more than 1.2 inches in an hour. What kind of inundation we'd be expecting to see. And so what I was looking for here is making sure that even though this is a very, very rare event, the kind of thing we would expect to happen, it would have like a 1 in 1,000 chance of happening as soon as we finish the project. Even in that case, the most severe kind of thing we would expect to see, all of our buildings are still protected. We get a little bit of ponding in the roads, but nothing really worse than what we see on a fairly regular basis now. Maybe we get 30 to 40 hours of this now, and in the future, at least the very near future, in advance of a lot of sea level rise, something that we'd expect to have happen 1 hour out of every 1,000 years. So pretty high confidence in the level of flooding we're providing, or level of flood protection we're providing. And so lastly, I'll switch gears a little bit to some of our planting information. I am not a horticulturalist or a landscape architect. This is kind of for those of you who may be interested in plants, I'll just let you read. But we are planting about 80 trees and removing 40 existing trees. So a net gain of 40. Oh, so one of the things that people have been very interested in, we hear a lot of comments about, is will the grass survive the various festivals that we have and the boat show? And we believe it's going to need reseeding every year. Yeah, hey Kathy, see your hand raised there.
Oh, thanks. I just wondering about the trees. Are those all native species?
Mostly. Mostly, yeah. Our critical areas submission outlines which ones are native, and we get credit for those, and a few that are not. So here's some pictures of a similar park lawn area in Baltimore and the kind of abuse that it takes. In the bottom picture, or the bottom row of pictures here, you can see some of the protection that Baltimore has used, and then in the top you see what they do in the fall to get grass to regrow. And then the last thing I'll cover is just a little bit of the reduction in impervious area within the 100-foot buffer of the critical area. The entire project is within the critical area, but within the 100-foot buffer, we are taking the impervious surface from about 2.6 acres to just under 2. So around a 25% reduction there. And I think it's similar for the rest of the project area. So that was a quick rundown. I'm happy to go into a little more detail on anything or answer any questions.
I have a question.
Sure.
Why are you keeping any of the parking for Dock Street? What was the thought process for that?
So those businesses, especially if you're in the like, let's say ice cream or burritos or something like that, having that the convenience of storefront parking, I think is important for those folks.
Okay.
I share the planning commission's view, or at least Bob Waldman's view, that ideally we would extend the park all the way to Randall Street.
Yeah.
We do need to absolutely, one thing we can't live without is a bus drop off for people doing tours, getting out to the watermark, what eventually might be an expanded ferry system. So we need to have at least a vehicle drop off in that parking lot. But I do think we could get rid of the passenger vehicles over time.
Yeah, I just
This first step, I
find-
think, is a confidence builder for those businesses. Is really how I see it. It's kind of baby steps that we expect that they'll see a lot more visitors and a lot more business as a result of having this park. And once we get our micro transit system up and running, people will be able to get around town from our parking garages, and I think we can afford to remove the remaining, whatever it is, 50 spots that are there. It's a great question.
Yeah, I just find from a safety standpoint, that area has a lot of issues. So
It sure does.
I do not
Yeah.
park there.
Yeah, but by virtue of us eliminating as much parking as we we're at least going to cut down on some of that traffic that those pedestrian and vehicle conflicts that we see at Dock and Randall Street. We do see that getting a lot better, and I think we're eliminating some of those turn lanes actually in. A little more to follow there on exactly what we, the city, do, not necessarily the city dock project that this group of designers and this construction team are going to deal with, but more work to be done on Randall Street for sure.
And there's no upland BMP practices being proposed for this portion of work, correct? Because it's too close to the groundwater.
So I'm not a stormwater expert. There are a lot of BMPs going in the park proper, but
Okay.
by upland, if you mean what I think of that, it would be further up on Main Street or Prince George Street or something like that. No, we're not.
No, I meant within the parks that you're
Yeah, within the
proposing.
park space. Yep. Quite a
Okay.
bit of stormwater treatment for sure. And those details will be worked out in the grading plan. They're shown on the site plan now, but as we go through the grading plan, there's a lot of stormwater treatment there.
Treatment or retention? Sorry. I guess I should clarify.
Well, again, not being a stormwater expert, I might be intermingling my terms.
Okay, fair
But,
enough.
yeah, things like submerged gravel wetlands and
Okay. So yeah, both.
both.
Well, thank you.
Sure.
Could you talk a little bit more about the impervious surface area? Like maybe show it on the diagram where it is and
Yeah, let me come back
and
there.
how it's different than what we have now.
So right now, it's impervious all the way down, right? And
Yeah.
a great way of seeing that is to go to accessannapolis.com, and maybe I'll bring that up here in a minute. And you can see a side-by-side comparison of what's parking
Okay.
lot and what becomes green space. But essentially, this entire area here is being converted from impervious to pervious. I think
Right.
Susan Campbell is mostly impervious now.
What's the maintenance schedule for the do you know what pervious material and what maintenance schedule will be utilized for that?
The pervious material is the grass and the plantings.
The like concrete area that you're
Concrete,
showing?
we're doing impervious.
Oh, okay. All right.
Okay. Thank you.
I have a question on this one, on this diagram, if everyone else is. Marianne, Alicia, are you guys good right now?
Yeah,
Okay.
we're good. Thank you.
Man. So will there be public access everywhere the bulkhead and the barrier improvements are being made? I mean, obviously within the park, but along these edges with those improvements, is public access kind of guaranteed along there?
Yes, in fact, these barriers are going to be largely invisible. Right,
Okay.
they'll be laying flat against the ground. So you'll have this here, a promenade with a barrier that is flush with the surface. So you'll be able to walk on the barrier and all of that.
Okay. And then I'm particularly looking where the blue line is, where the new bulkhead is, and there's some parking down there, and I know there's businesses down there, but will the dock be and the bulkhead be kind of that area be accessible to the public? Or is that private? I can't remember. I don't
It's
recall.
currently, there's a boardwalk here in front of the chop tank.
Mhm.
And so if you're just like what you see here, this boardwalk continues down to the chop tank, in front of the chop tank. It's theirs, but they leave it open to the public. And then it more or less terminates here. And at this point where my cursor is, that's where the Fleet Reserve's fence starts. So what the bulkhead will do is put something in front of that boardwalk, outboard of it.
Okay.
So you can still walk down the boardwalk, or you can walk along the concrete bulkhead like you do now, if you want to. You can walk beside it or on it. For boats that are tied up along here, this is run by Oasis, not run by the city's harbor master. They'll still be able to get in and out, just like boats do over here. Essentially, this bulkhead is going to look exactly like this one does on Plant North.
Okay. I have a few questions, so I'm just gonna run through stuff. And
Sure, go for it.
it may be it is, might be very stormwater related too, so I'm not sure if you'll know. But I'm curious, what is going to be under? Have you seen like a cross section where the grass is going? Like how are they planning to do that? Is it just gravel? Is there storage under that grass area? I'm just wondering why so much of the lawn has remained.
So you're asking about the lawn area, right?
Yeah. So is that part of the retention and water quality approach? Is it, or is
I
there
wouldn't think
another
so.
reason
Like
for it?
water's going to hit the grass, infiltrate down into the ground.
Okay.
When you as opposed to running off.
When you were showing the wet wells, I was kind of thinking maybe I was assuming that grass area would maybe have some of that, or
No, the wet wells are quite small.
Okay.
On the order of, if it's rectangular, maybe 8 by 10. Circular, we might do a couple of circular wet wells. Those will be about 10 feet in diameter.
Mm-hmm. And are those?
But no, we're not doing massive. In terms of this kind of project, our drainage area is quite small.
Right.
We're only dealing with, like I said, 25 acres, and usually, for the large cisterns or large stormwater projects like you might see in Washington, D.C., you're talking about thousands upon thousands of acres.
Yeah. Okay. And the part of the reason I'm asking is because I have worked on a project before where the grassy lawn areas were part of the water quality and detention approach. And it was this is part of the strategy to keep that grass maintained. You'll have a high sand volume in the soil, which will allow it to be highly permeable, and then you can
Sure.
have
Yep.
gravel underneath. So it's something to consider, because I think it is going to be, you know, a large area that will need to be maintained, and you know, clearly there's going to be times when the grass is going to have to be you know, either reseeded or sodded, or
Mhm.
I've seen various different approaches, but it does require that large area to be, in order to do it well and for the investment to work, to be kind of off limits for a while the grass kind of
Yeah,
recuperates.
yeah,
So
absolutely.
if there's
That's
like
kind of what we envision happening.
So I guess I'm thinking if there's
Maybe
like
in
a
November,
dual,
you know, I think our idea is that we would reseed immediately after the boat show, then keep it off limits for a month or so to allow that seed to germinate. It'll germinate, then go dormant for the winter time, and then, you know, in the springtime, the roots will start to grow again deeper.
yeah. So I guess what I'm saying is that's a large area of kind of a preeminent park downtown that for part of the time is going to be off limits. And I understand that you know, when there are events on there, it's going to be a nice experience and all that, but it's just something to consider, that if there's a dual use for those grassy areas where they're working, they have a little bit more of a layered environmental you know, reason for being there. I don't know. I like to see that kind of approach to this sort of investment, especially being this is like our chance to like really make this centerpiece of an area of downtown something special. So I think having like layered uses of some of these spaces is important. But on that same track, this is not really like the infrastructure, but more of a program. I'm surprised there's nothing that's like like a small playground. I believe that there was like program that was requested. And if there is an opportunity to kind of rethink some of the grassy space, so that, you know, more of the space is usable in a more active programmed way. I have seen, you know, lots of situations with urban parks where small spaces are carved off to have a little bit more active programming on the sides. And that could kind of make the fact that some of this is going to have to be like, well, there'll be less maintenance of those areas as far as the grass maintenance, but you can still use it all year round. So I just want to put that plug in there for that.
Sure.
I would like to personally,
The planners and the architects who put this together envision this as that area. This is the active area. It's the active park. It's got a lot of play and activity around it. Of course, this fountain is what we think is going to be a huge draw for, especially for people with small children. It'll be swimmable or splash pad kind of thing. So that's going to be fantastic.
Yeah, and that was the other reason why I asked what's under the grass, is I was wondering why there aren't trees around that splash pad, because from the time of the year when it's going to be used, you know, a built structure, it can provide shade as well, or trees. And it screams to me as like an opportunity. I just was wondering, why are the trees off to the sides and there's nothing?
Have you ever been to the boat show?
Right.
That's the answer.
Right. So I don't know. Maybe there's a way to work it in, and the boat show can kind of work around a few trees.
This is a significant. It's already 25% reduction in space that they can lease out, you know, to vendors in their show. It's really as much as we could do without making while keeping them viable, I guess I would say.
Right. Well, you know, maybe there's a way. I just think that that splash pad is going to be such a draw, and the way that the heat and the heat island and this and just the sun has been, it's not going to be easily usable. And you know, if you think of the way people are going to want to use it, you need to have some shade out there. And that's just it just needs to happen. To be kind of the most successful space that it can be. And then
Can I add to your tree comment?
yeah, sure.
So like the one issue with trees around there is that they'll damage the infrastructure, the pipes for the fountain and the concrete itself, but you could do tree boxes that can be moved around the site.
I've done trees around these systems all the time. And I mean you don't want to put them right on you don't want to put a willow tree there,
Yeah.
but you can put trees and you can put root barriers if you need to in there. But root tree boxes are great if they're big enough and yeah, movable, then that does solve somewhat of an issue. Or a you know, some kind of structure that can go up and down as needed. There's, you know, there's lots of options.
The other consideration here is also, I'll call it the historic preservation folks who are very interested in maintaining wide open views, particularly from Randall Street, Main Street towards the water. So it's been a little bit, it's definitely been a balance.
Yeah.
Trying to provide for shade for people while, you know, I guess various stakeholder perspectives on what they would like this to be. And so this is kind of where we landed as something that we think works reasonably well for all of those things.
Right. I commend the effort. I understand how challenging that can be, but you know, as the kind of
there are people who really don't even like these trees, and these are in those movable. Yeah, they could be moved out of the way.
Yeah. Well, this is the downtown city park, and if there's no if the people who don't want trees had their way, it would not be usable.
Yeah.
And yes, you might have
I completely
a view.
agree. Yeah.
Yes, you would have a view of an unused space. So I think that, you know, the trees are great, and I'm just want to put a little, you know, vote in for maybe a little bit more shade around what I think is a fantastic program space that, you know, is not an easy one to keep in the project. So, and I'm glad to see it there. It'll be very popular. So the grass, what was under the grass, having it be a layered approach. Some kind of, you know, maybe a playground, you know, if there is some ability to look at this design a little bit, you know, maybe I know a lot of the public wanted a small playground in this area, and maybe that's phase 2. I like the idea that maybe the parking can transition eventually, but those are my main comments. Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks.
You're welcome.
Yeah, see Bill's hand.
Yeah, thanks, Jeremy. Yeah, thank you for this presentation. I was just curious about how it's being funded and what the timeline is.
So funding is a mix of some state funding, about $10 million here, then a FEMA grant. We're close to getting approval for it. We're just working through the environmental and historic preservation reviews there. That will bring in $32 million, and then the city is providing about $20 million. So that gets us pretty close to where we need to be. And I should caveat that is for more or less this scope, from starting at the yellow at Alex Haley and everything up here. Down here, we've got another federal grant that will take care of stormwater here and a mix of Maryland flood mitigation grants and a FEMA grant to do stormwater and this bulkhead.
Okay.
So FEMA looks at this as three separate projects, everything you're looking at on the screen, which makes life fun for me.
Right.
Is
For sure.
Donner Park part of this?
It is, yeah. So the parking lot that sits next to the chop tank is getting turned into another grassy space. We're removing that parking.
And
So-
then
so
how
if
about the
everything-
timeline? Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Oh
gonna
yeah,
say.
regarding the timeline. So looking to kick off in June. It's really important that we start no later than June. We've got a lot of work to do on the electrical infrastructure in the window that we have, maybe 15, 16 months. Then we'll take a quick pause for the boat shows in the fall. And then we start with all of this work. The main work in the park will happen from October 2024 through October of 2025. Then subsequent phases will be doing the stormwater stuff and some of the flood barriers. That work will continue on for another year, maybe two. All of that is up there on the Access Annapolis website. Although it says we're going to start in maybe March, April, that's now been pushed back a few months.
So during that October to October time period, those areas, including the Dock Street Park and the Susan Campbell Park, they won't be usable, right?
That's right. Construction fences up here. We're bringing in loads of dirt, probably by barge, because there's a lot of fill that has to go here. Installing flood barriers. Yep. This is a construction site for 11 months.
So the circular area, is that elevated? Can you describe that that feature?
Sure. If you guys will give me a second, I'm gonna fumble around here. See if I can provide one of our city doc presentations.
While you've been talking, I know I've just been sitting on the Access Annapolis website, using that scroll bar to switch between those views. So I find that very helpful.
Awesome. Okay.
And then Bill, did you have more questions after that? Is your hand just still raised? So I'm
Oh,
just
sorry.
checking.
No, I think I'm good.
All right, this one's a little dated, but you'll get a sense for some of that. Okay, this is probably a good place to start. So this starts at existing elevation, maybe around 3. And then as you move up in this direction to this fountain, you move up about 3 or 4 feet. So it is gradually sloping upwards, but you see some clues to that here with the stairs. And then stairs here on the backside, back down to Susan Campbell Park, which is more or less at its current elevation.
Okay, so that's a fountain. I got you.
Yeah, the circle is a fountain. Here you go. It looks something like this.
And that pergola stage, then that's a permanent structure?
It is.
Okay. On the subject of parking and the phase 1 electrical work, just wondering, are there plans then to incorporate, and for the parking spaces that remain, are some of those going to become EV charging spots, or is that still left to be determined?
To be determined, but yeah, absolutely. Moving away from city dock a little bit, we need a lot more EV charging downtown. I work right next to the Hillman garage, and even when the garage is not full, our charging spaces tend to fill up. And I think we all know that EV ownership is going to explode over the next 5-10 years. So we're going to be needing to add a lot more EV charging downtown for sure. We'll put a couple here on Prince George Street. BGE is already asking to do that. Not sure how much we want to do here on Dock Street though, since some of us would like to see that parking go away altogether.
I saw some of the earlier presentations on the barriers, and I know a lot of work has gone into selecting the right ones. So I know that was a big part of the earlier phases of this project.
And we've still been looking at that, to getting the exact vendor information, the product, how it operates, how it's how maintainable is it, how safe are they, things like that, and their physical dimensions to make it all fit. So I actually just I think one of the things I flashed on the screen here is exactly that. My latest barrier plan, which I think is pretty close to final, came across in my email today, maybe just an hour or two ago. So lots and lots and lots of gory detail on barriers.
Yeah.
But we're close enough now to where we think we can put these things out for bid. It's important if we can to get competition from the various system providers.
And I don't think so on top of, how high are they? Are they all
very
even?
So I think this map, those numbers in red parentheses give you the functional height of the barrier.
Okay.
What the additional protection that a barrier is giving us. So the tallest barriers are over here, where we're looking to get almost 5 feet, 5 or 6 feet, and in some places much less, 2, 3, or 4 feet. Everything has to get to 8. So basically, the lower the ground is, the taller the barrier has to be.
I some of the smaller heights, the 1.5, I mean, is that something that can be met with like a site feature? A wall plan, like a,
Well, those are stair openings. That
oh,
allows people to get from the boats up to the park.
oh, okay. So I don't see, I guess on the screen, I don't see what the pink represents.
Solid.
Okay. Okay, that makes sense. Okay.
Pink doesn't move.
Mm-hmm. It's just a various, like either stairs or a wall, a
Yeah,
landscape wall.
these are knee walls. They'll be made out of masonry or granite.
Okay.
Or,
Okay.
or concrete. Yeah.
Mhm.
Well,
Cool.
let me just ask then, for the project, I know the planning commission met, it was last week, right? Were there
Thursday,
any
yeah.
final steps with the planning commission? Has it cleared all the hurdles then to move
No,
ahead?
I think they're going to vote at their next meeting, which will be 8 days from now. And then we do Historic Preservation Commission. We do our grading permitting. And then we wait for the FEMA grant approval.
Okay.
Put the contract out on the street for bids.
Mhm.
Yeah, so that's why it's a June start.
Yeah, kind of going through those final designs. The electrical has kind of been a nightmare. There's just a lot of electrical infrastructure to get power out to those boats.
Oh,
So a good chunk of the first floor of the Harbor Master building today is electrical switches and breakers. The small building, which is a little bit like a birdhouse that we call the birdhouse, is all electrical equipment. So that has to be redone and relocated to other things.
okay. Does anyone have any other questions or comments? Jeremy, did you have something?
I did
Not
have one
personally.
question.
Go ahead, Bill.
Has Ego Alley silted in a bit? Has there been discussions about dredging it?
Not to my knowledge, no.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's still plenty deep.
Well, we had blocked off until 8. So if there are any other questions, now's the time.
Mm,
But if we can give Mr. Vogel a few minutes back in his evening, I'm inclined to do
And if you
so.
want to learn more and hear this presented by, especially the visual and the programming aspects, the presentation that the team gave to the Planning Commission on Thursday is last week is probably worth listening to.
Yeah. Thank you for.
You'll get the professionals talking instead of me, the engineer just sort of bumbling through it.
No, your viewpoint is important as well. So thank you for coming.
Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate
Thanks
it.
for having me. Really appreciate the time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Take care, y'all. Good night.
Have a good night. All right, let me go back to our agenda. Where did I put it? So we're a little ahead of schedule. I don't think Racine sent the minutes out to everyone, so we can maybe save meeting minutes approval for next time. So I think I have the minutes, but I didn't send them out either. So from, I guess, November would be our last meeting. I did send out by email the list of our prospective dates for the 2024 calendar year.
Mhm.
I've been assuming we'll keep our current schedule of the 4th Wednesday of the month, which works out until we get to November and December again. We'll need to reschedule those or cancel. And in August, we usually end up canceling, but I figure we can plan to have it and cancel. That's always easier to do that way. Were there any objections or alternatives? Also planning to keep it virtual by default, unless there's strong feelings. Maybe meet in person once or something, because we have had a lot of new faces. If we do want to try to get together in person maybe once, we could try to do that with a long enough lead time, but virtual is just so convenient for everyone.
It is.
So
Mhm.
I do like to keep it that way.
I do have T-shirts though, and I have to apologize to everybody who responded. I haven't gotten around to contacting all of you who wants a T-shirt. but I will try to do that.
Yeah, I gotta get one of those if you have one of my size.
All right.
Well, so if there's nothing else on the calendar, we'll just proceed as planned, with planning to meet in August and reevaluate that later in June or July, and then we'll try to we'll try to reschedule a little more in advance for November and December. So I'm inclined to cancel in December in advance at this point. And go ahead.
Does everyone have the 2024 goals? That I know there's some new folks, and I missed a meeting where everyone kind of came in. So we should dig that up again and share that, because so the comments that I'm trying to even though I find myself personally going down a design track with some of these projects, but I'm trying to keep it on hitting the topics of our goals. So that could be good to look at again. So as we review the projects, kind of knowing the types of things that we can be kind of helping to put on the radar.
That makes sense. I was really impressed with all the things you directed. You wanted to point out in that meeting, and I was like, wow, okay. She knows what she's doing.
I'm starting a small landscape architecture business here, and I have over 10 years of experience doing that. So, but I also appreciated your comments as well, leading with the water quality and the volume and the detention comments, because I think that in this day and age, every dollar that's spent on especially parks, but transportation projects as well, there's an opportunity to layer it to have so I just want to make sure that somebody's reminding folks in the city that that's what we can do.
Yeah, and I did not put together like the draft priorities to share yet, but we do have a starting point from last year. Or do we have? No, we have the one that we did a year ago.
Oh, that's what I meant. We should just,
Yeah,
I
there's
think we can revisit that one.
yeah, there's one in I guess that's the April 18th, 23, the priorities. Is that the one that
Yeah, that'd be the final version.
yeah, that goes into water quality, climate change, urban tree canopy. There's a list of
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking at it right now. So actually I think it's a great idea to we could potentially revisit those every meeting. I mean, just touch on them to see if there's any activity.
Mm-hmm.
Where are those saved?
So that's actually it's in our Google Docs.
I need to make sure probably
think
haven't
it's
added all the newer members yet. So I think Alicia, Sarah, probably need to get you on there. But Marianne, you do see you already have the Google Docs.
Yeah, I do.
And I will say it's fairly disorganized since probably May or June, whenever Allison stopped
Right.
organizing and compiling everything is kind of when it fell off.
Yes.
But there is still a lot of useful information up there and documents.
Mm-hmm.
And
I think the 2023 priorities are still very relevant. I mean,
Yes, I agree.
it's always easier to start with something to react to. Just by way of information, I did just want to note as well that we got our annual report in. It was very, very basic, just one paragraph explanation of what we did last year, which was simpler than think even the simple approach from the previous year was just kind of a one sentence summary of each month. Since it was due last Monday or last Tuesday, skipped that. It took me enough effort to dig up all the minutes and do the attendance. So
Yeah, thank you.
I think we met our requirements. That's what
Yeah.
matters.
Yeah. I met the executive director for Annapolis Green recently, and you all might know her. But she's interested in coming and speaking to this group. So
Great.
just to talk about their priorities, what they're doing, and just to put their activities on our radar, really. Just kind of spreading the knowledge.
Yeah, that sounds like a great idea. Who is the president?
Tilly is her first name, and I have to go find her card to remember her last name.
And Paul, I see your hand up.
Yeah, thank you. In regards to, Annapolis Green has done excellent work for, hard to believe, probably 15 years from now. For 15 years, they've touched a lot of really good things. So my point is, we've mentioned this a little bit before, when it fits your personal lives and your schedule, if a few more of us went to Annapolis Green functions, they're a Wednesday night typically once a month, we're just cross-pollinating more. There's good people there. There's really good people on our committee. I don't think the community knows all the good new people that we've brought on to AEC. So it just, it's good cross-pollination, and it's not a bad night either. You can have a glass of wine and meet some friends, but there's a lot of people that show up those, often over 100 people. So it's a good way for us to get our effort exposed to more people who care.
Is that the same Annapolis Green Drinks?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yes.
Green drunks.
okay. Yeah. I've heard, have wanted to join, just hadn't yet. Cool.
You don't even have to join, just show up.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
I'm
it's
down for that.
a good group. They've done a lot of really good things. And not to digress, but for those of you known them for a while, Elvia is now living on the North Shore of Hawaii. She's in Kaneohe Bay.
That's right. Very nice.
Yeah, so she wants a off-site meeting there. Come join her.
Yeah.
Come visit.
All right, was that it for you, Paul?
Yes, sir. How about if I take my hand down?
Yeah, thank you, sir. Marianne?
Yeah, so you all know I'm all about the tree canopy, and so Annapolis's tree canopy is now at an all-time high of 50% to be attained by 2040. And Save Our Trees, which I'm a founding member of, and we're part of the Watershed Stewards Academy. We're having basically a community chat on February 7th at the Annapolis Library. And actually, Rob Savage is going to speak, Brian Adams, and then we're going to have a couple of people from Bartlett Trees. And it's basically just going to be a forum for us to talk about ways that we can all work together to get to that goal of 50% by 2040. So you're all welcome to attend. And I have a flyer, and I can forward it to everybody on the commission if you're interested. We'd love to have you.
Marianne, is that the one that got
Just a
postponed
little-
due to the storm?
It did.
Okay.
Yes. Yep. It was originally set for January 16th. Yeah.
And there's also a Save Our Trees event this weekend, right? In Broadneck Park?
Yeah. And yep, Broadneck Park. Yeah. And we had one a couple weekends ago in Truxton Park. I can actually, I don't want to inundate you all, but I can send you, just our events if you'd like, just so you know what's going on in the city. So that's
Yeah, I don't think that would hurt.
for the most part, what we do is invasive control, but we're stretching our mission a little bit by basically coordinating this forum on February 7th.
Jeremy, would you mind sending out everybody's email addresses to the group? Or if you have that Google group list?
Sure. Yeah, and the Google group should work for anyone, but I forget how I labeled it. What was it? Too many windows, sorry.
While you're thinking about that, this is actually a question for Madeline. Mr. Murphy always has to ask me for the invite to this meeting, so I'm wondering if you, Madeline, could make sure that he's on the invitation for this meeting. Anyway, I'll send an email about that.
Yeah, AEC_members-2023 at googlegroups.com. So that is a little clunky, but that should work for everyone.
I'm sorry,
First
it's
times.
AEC dash underscore members.
Yeah, it's AEC_members-2023. So if you, those of us who were around for the previous one, there was just AEC_members. So I added the -2023. And this is my first time setting up a Google Groups, so it may need to tweak some of the settings to make sure that folks like Jackie or others can also send messages to us. But those of us, all the members are on the group and can definitely send messages that way. Just so you don't have to count the emails and make sure you're getting everyone.
Okay.
Were there any other just quick updates from the group? I do see Jackie's on the line, so we can pivot into city updates from city staff.
Did you guys get all your questions answered from Burr?
Yeah, I think so. That went
Okay.
very well.
You know, there's a link on the city website to the city doc scheduling that they update periodically. It has, if you Google city doc, you should pull it up.
The
Racine should be able to-
Access Annapolis website.
I think it's Access Annapolis. I haven't gone there directly myself in quite a while. I mean, we've pulled it up in meetings to talk about it. Racine should be able to send it to you, a little direct link. You know, they update it so that you always know what's going on if it changes. But for right now, because it's changed, it's bumped back a few times.
Yeah,
The phasing on it's changed a few times.
yeah, you mentioned that, and I do see there is a option on the Access Annapolis website if you scroll down to the bottom to sign up for email updates.
Mhm.
So I did that. I think I couldn't remember if I'd already signed up for the newsletter. So I just did it again.
Yeah. So I was just at the Eastport Yacht Club, had Senator Alfred there to talk about Chesapeake Bay a little bit. So I just popped in to see if there was any gems of wisdom I could pick up. And she's introduced, the only thing I can think of you guys would really be interested in is, she was talking a little bit about the Caesar report. I don't know how many people are familiar with that. Jenny may be, somebody may be. It's the comprehensive evaluation of system response, which sounds like a military report, but it was really an evaluation of, you know, why aren't the things we're doing for the Chesapeake Bay working faster and better? And what is working, what isn't working, what's working and why isn't it working faster, and what are recommendations to make the bay's recovery better. So that came out in May. It was put together by a group of scientists. That's something that's EPA's website. They call it CESAR because the acronym is CESR. That's something we can send you guys the link for if you're ever interested in looking at, because it does, look at the Annapolis and Arundel County area. And it's basically saying we shouldn't focus so much on the TMDLs. We should be looking at the living resources such as submerged aquatic vegetation, crabs, other organisms, looking at other markers besides just nutrient, phosphorus, sediment reductions. It's kind of interesting to see some of the recommendations. And she talked about her a bill she's introduced with Delegate Sarah Love out of Montgomery County, the Whole Watershed Act. And this is a pot of $5 million that the state will be distributing over 5 years in kind of chunks. So rather than for small projects, they're going to be looking at kind of larger chunks like the South River or the Severn River. So bigger areas. And they're looking to give this money not so much to governments. Sarah was dissing governments a little bit. And then my name was very prominently up on the screen, and I started chatting a whole lot in the chat box about everything we were doing. And then Sarah knows better. I just saw her last night. And then she started talking about the kinds of projects they're looking at, and that most of the projects have to have a number of co-benefits. So it can't just be a wetland project. It has to be a wetland and a riparian buffer and maybe a living shoreline and upland tree planting. So they're looking at projects that have a bunch of co-benefits so that there can be a bunch of things happening at one time that kind of boost a whole ecosystem. So in those projects, they're looking to award those to nonprofits. And she had mentioned things like Arundel Rivers and SRA and groups like that to implement them, which I'm sure they're thrilled about. So, and the other one was more geared to agricultural lands. I know we have some in our area, but not in the city. That was called Best in Show, that bill, which she's sponsoring with a delegate out of Howard County. And that's, again, another $5 million pot of money that's going to go to more agricultural type of projects, encouraging best management practices along mostly riparian areas. So trying to get riparian buffers and tree plantings. Again, another co-benefit type of pot of money, encouraging best management practices, but packaged with several of them. You have to do several best management practices at once on an agricultural area along a stream.
Are these focused on specific counties or?
With that one, they're going to target the worst areas, they said, for that one. Mm-hmm. And the other one, what do they call it? The Whole Watershed Act. That one, they're going to, again, target watersheds. Like I said, they're looking at the South River as a river, okay, the Severn River as a river, not just a project on the river, okay, or just a piece of a county. And so that one was more interesting to me.
Who was leading that one again? The Whole Watershed?
The Whole Watershed Act. Senator Elfreth introduced it along with Delegate Sarah Love from Montgomery County. So I think they just introduced that one. And I sent you guys, it was a little late coming out today. It was supposed to go out last week, but I did have a couple meetings today that I was able to provide some updated information on that, my resilience and sustainability update. I did email to you right before I left the office, probably around 4:30, 4 o'clock today. Just giving you guys, it's a new format I started doing things in rather than the Excel spreadsheet, which was kind of clunky. Just giving you guys highlights of things we're working on the resilience and sustainability front. There's probably more things I can add to that, but they were kind of the newer things we're working on. So I know I sent that one. I would love to have that sent out a week ago, but I didn't get the input from everybody I needed. on it. You guys have any questions, just email me or call me anytime on that. The good news for me is that I have a position approved for a fellowship. I say I have someone who will be joining my staff for 6 months, a young man who is about a year out of school, environmental studies background, and most likely he has to pass his drug test, which is required from everybody who does work in the city. So I got his position approved and funded. There's just one more step to go before I can really talk about it anymore and talk about who he is or anything like that. But hopefully I can get some more projects going with him. He can do more research for me, help me with some legislative things that we do, and be help to this group as well.
Jackie, when you say you emailed the report, did that go? I don't think I got that. Did that go to everyone in this group, or?
The resiliency, it's the January Resilience and Sustainability Project update. I emailed it this afternoon.
I'll forward it. I think we didn't get all the newer members in there.
So I guess Mary Ann should be on there, and I think I got everybody.
There's a few missing, but we can forward it on.
Okay.
Jackie.
Okay.
Test the Google group.
Oh, the 2 people who got confirmed recently probably aren't on my list, right? Yep.
So Alicia and Sarah.
Yeah, sorry guys.
I don't think I would either. And Jeremy, I got the agenda, I guess, through the Google, but I don't know how to get to the Google group. I don't see it in my Google groups when I go in, so maybe you can help me later with figuring that out.
Okay, yeah, we can troubleshoot offline.
I don't know if there's anything in particular that anyone wanted to ask me about a particular project or anything.
So it sounds like, just from my recollection from previous presentations from you, Jackie, that we had GreenVest doing a lot of stuff for us. So is that a good thing that we've terminated the contract with them? Do you feel comfortable with that?
Yeah, they had, what they did, you see that in my update, they inventoried all of our outfalls and all of our BMPs. So that was a big undertaking. And as part of that inventory of our BMPs, they identified kind of the state of the BMPs. Some of them weren't functioning anymore. They were old, they had not been maintained, and they identified those that were important and should be brought back to life, and those that were just dysfunctional and weren't worth it. And so, and that way Public Works can start investing, targeting those and investing money in the ones that make sense and are worth doing. And in some cases, nonprofits or community groups had identified certain BMPs that were neglected and said, we want to take these over. And that's great. The city didn't have to invest in them, and others that we just let go. So they did that work for us, and they helped inventory all the outfalls and identify the ones that needed repair. They did all of that work for Public Works. So that was great. They did that. They also did some, early on, they did the Back Creek and the Spot Creek assessments. You guys might remember, some of you might remember that they did identified, working off Stan Tech's earlier work, they identified some additional projects that might be worthy in some areas that were eroding and in need of work. And they did a presentation in Chambers one afternoon. It was probably in 2019 on the Spot Creek watershed and the Spot Creek watershed. But then they never went forward with any tasks. And we talked about, they were very expensive. They loaded up a lot of staff on things. It was a slow process. There's a lot of negotiating on contracts and how they should work with us. But in the end, as they chugged along on the other work that was very useful, we ended up hiring another engineer. So we had more engineers to do the work. We ended up with another environmental inspector we didn't have before. And we ended up creating a new position the Public Works didn't have, which was a stormwater project manager, which is Betsy McEwen's role now. So we have 3, maybe 4 now new staff positions that we didn't have before. And so we have many more staff and more expertise in-house so that we can do things much more efficiently in-house. We also are doing more. They were farming out some of the work to biohabitats that the city works with, and we can always hire biohabitats to do work with us. So we found we were, we're in a different place now than we were when we originally conceived of this project. Also, as I pointed out, we have the Resilience Authority, which we did not have when we thought we were going to need them to identify funding sources for us and, to help us from identifying projects to assessment and design, construction, build, and financing. We frankly don't need that service anymore. We're doing more and more project identification and funding through the Resilience Authority. So I think we grew to a point where we grew out of them, and it's a good thing.
Okay, cool. Thanks for that update.
Yeah. And so it was a very amicable parting. I spoke with Doug Lashley about it, and he understands. It was a good thing that we had the funding, and we had the Resilience Authority work out the way it did.
Yeah. And it's good news that you got all those positions. That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah. The only I was wondering if there's any updates on the solar parks. I know last we talked, they discovered the cap under.
Well, we always knew the cap was there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's a geotextile. It's like, not plastic. It's a kind of plastic cap. And so it's about probably in the lowest parts, 18 inches, maybe down to 3 feet in some parts, but it's a pretty shallow cap. And it reaches all the way out to the fence line. So we actually had a meeting today, and that's in my update, with a group called United Voltaics Incorporated. And they're out of New York and Tennessee mostly, but they work all over the US. And what their main focus is, this group, is to bring bringing agriculture and photovoltaics together. And what they try to do is they try to bring sheep grazing to solar arrays, but they also plan and design pollinator gardens. And what they do is, if you want to bring sheep in to cut your costs on mowing and do, without the carbon output from mowers, is mechanical mowing, is to bring sheep in to do the grazing for you. You can plant your areas around your solar arrays with something that provides nutrition and is appealing to sheep. We have an opportunity there to plant low growing. We have to do something low growing because our solar arrays are so close to the ground. You go to some parks and they're pretty high off the ground, and you can grow higher growing different types of plants. In our case, we have to grow pretty low growing plants because ours are 18 inches off the ground at their low point. But on the outside of the fence, that we own a lot of that property. We own property that goes, there's a big, it's a pretty big expanse between the fence line and where the woods start. And we can do more out there. We can grow higher growing plants, different variety of plants outside. Inside the fence line, Novus Renewables, who owns the solar arrays and has the lease to operate the solar park, they do the mowing. Outside the fence, the city does the mowing and maintains the property outside the fence. So we talked to them today because their approach is different from what we heard from U.S. Fish and Wildlife. Again and again, U.S. Fish and Wildlife said, if you want your pollinator garden to be successful, you have to do a chemical burn off and start over. And we had hoped not to go that route, because no one likes to use chemicals. We didn't want to destroy, what's there, the wildlife, the insect population that is there. We have slopes outside of the fence. We have steep slopes that go down. We have streams that feed to the South River around the property. We have the aquifer there around, downstream of the solar park itself. So we're really trying to avoid that. What we were told again and again, you have to get rid of the fescue. You have to get rid of everything there if you really want pollinators. What we learned from this group is if you want 100% native plants, that is true. But if you want to grow a pollinator habitat that's not necessarily 100% native, you can do a broad overseed, a low till and seed, and you will still get plants that are pollinator plants. They might not just all be native. And like, for example, dandelions and certain clovers are not native, but yet they support pollinators. And when we're talking about pollinators, we're not just talking about insects. We're not just talking about bees. We're talking about birds, and other animals that are pollinators. So that's an appealing idea. It's a much more low impact idea. It can take a little longer to establish your pollinator garden. We can do something a little bit more aesthetically pleasing on the outside of the fence because we can do more because we don't have the solar arrays out there. And we have to, but the thing, if we want to use sheep to graze and not have mechanical mowing inside the fence, we have to get Novus Renewables on board with it. And apparently we learned during this conversation that this company, United Voltaics, they have agrivoltaics. They have sheep grazing at 8 Novus Renewable sites. Now, they admitted that some of these sheep relationships were put into place with the predecessor to Novus Renewables, which was Building Energy. And in our case, Building Energy was the first company that was there as well. Novus Renewable inherited it at our site and in some of these others as well. But they continued the sheep once they inherited the site because they did save money. So this is not a new concept to them. And the person we spoke with, Caleb Scott, today, he does know the woman we've been speaking with as well at Novus. He also, because the city council, including the city manager, wanted also beekeeping as part of this project outside the fence, which they recommended as well. They do have a beekeeping situation at one of their sites as well that Novus operates. So that's not off the table either. So that was encouraging that they do the sheep and they've done pollinators at other Novus sites. And to get Novus on board with this, because Novus said they would consider participating, they would just like to see the proposal. The proposal we're looking at for them to do the assessments of the site and come up with a design and a seed mix for us both inside and outside the fence for the entire site was around $4,500. And then if we wanted to tack on a plan for the sheep as well, that's like another $4,000. So we're looking at under $10,000 for the planning phase of it. And if we tell them, our total budget we have for this project is around $52,000, they would tell us, how much we could do for $52,000. They wouldn't be doing the implementation. They would just give us an idea of how much of the site we could actually plant as a pollinator garden if we were to outsource it with a contractor, a landscape company that would come in and do the work. So they could give us a better idea of how much of it we could actually accomplish. So the initial, we would be chewing up, roughly $10,000 with them if we went with them to get a design and a plan. If we went that route.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely encouraging to hear that, the fescue can if you do the right kind of tilling but I would assume you'd have to do multiple years to really have it, but maybe not, maybe once and it's good, but I would assume.
Yeah, it just, what they were saying it just depends on what kind of pollinator garden you want. And I think because we need to have it low growing anyway inside the fence, and
Yeah.
where we could have taller growing anyway was pretty limited.
Yeah.
I'm not so adverse to doing that inside the fence.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I can see that too, because it's not like you're gonna do a prairie.
Anyway, inside
Yeah.
there, yeah.
Yeah. It's good.
Yeah. So it's something to seriously consider. I mean, we need to do a bit more research, and we need to speak with some of the sites and to Novus more about it, to see truly what the success rate has been, before we spend a lot of money on it and it doesn't work. So that's where we are with that.
Cool.
Paul, I see your hand.
Yes, well, first of all, Jackie, thank you. I think probably speaking for everyone, I did not like the idea of, people telling us chemicals was the best way to get rid of all the weeds, and it's like, oh, so thank you for your persistence on that. I don't think anyone prefers to do chemicals, and hopefully, as you probe further and didn't just take a final answer from one entity, but kept pushing and you learned more. That was great. So, thank you for that. And I would think, looking broadly, and I won't get too far into it, if we ever were shy of dollars for something like that, that's where you have an Annapolis Green go out there. We put a little cover charge for the event. It's such a feel-good story of using sheep instead of chemicals, and a bee garden and all that. It's good all the way around. So
yeah, it really could be, really nice. And the sheep thing inside the fence, we're growing, you get the whole thing inside could be a pollinator garden, and using sheep instead of mechanical, save money. The outside could be pollinator as well. There could be bees, it could be education, that's where people ride their bikes and run and walk, so that's more interactive. We could have signage up there, so it could be more educational, school groups, the whole thing. I mean, it's a whole, and also DNR, I was up there, they wanted to meet me up there a few months ago. It's always, every single time I go up there with anybody, it's always cold and windy as heck. And of course that day it was too. And DNR the secretary came and brought a big group of people up there, and the assistant secretary from planning too. And turns out the secretary of DNR used to work on a sheep farm and where they had solar, and he's very interested in this and was like, keep me up to date. I want to know more about this. And they, they're trying to promote solar and pollinator habitat on solar arrays. And they are trying to promote solar arrays on brownfields. It's everywhere across the, Maryland. And I think all state agencies across the US. So this could be a real kind of showcase for this effort. And I think on a number of levels as an education showcase. So I think, I was trying to get them to say they'd help support us, but they weren't throwing dollars at us. But I think we can get DNR. I think we can get them interested and supportive of us.
Well, good. And it would be interesting if there was a list or, a website or locations where this is done previously, just for our general interest.
Well, Racine and I visited the pollinator gardens at the Easton Solar Park. That was probably the most local one. It's not nearly as large as ours. And they were able to put that in from the get-go, which is much easier. It was raw ground. It was a big field and it was raw ground. It wasn't a brownfield site. I think it was ag originally. Ours is, a bit different. We have a different story to tell because it's a capped landfill, and ours is a site that was already planted. So it's a little bit different.
If you go to, I just looked up unitedagrivoltaics.com and they have images on their site. I don't know. This is a webinar, so I don't see a chat. Otherwise I'd paste.
Yeah, and they told me they have the most sheep herds Maryland has the most sheep herds. They're the most active in Maryland with their sheep herds
Oh, wow.
of any
Yeah.
other state. Yeah. They did not have a relationship with it. They used local herd farmers. And so this would be establishing a new relationship with somebody in Anne Arundel County or bringing someone in who would do it here. But I think there's an opportunity for someone in Anne Arundel County because I know that the county is planning to open another solar park. They're looking at Glen Burnie. So this and other areas as well. The county wants to do more solar parks. So this could be an opportunity for a farmer to get started here. You don't use goats because goats jump on everything. Everyone always asks me about goats. I don't know if you guys have any. I have experience with goats. No,
Yeah.
no, goats will chew anything and they jump on everything. They're
It's
cute,
fun, but
but
not in a solar field.
they're cute in videos. Let's put it
Yeah.
that way.
Yeah.
Not in person. So, and the other thing I have is Climate Change Solutions, which is Elvia Thompson, formerly of Annapolis Green. They completed quite some time ago an electric vehicle strategy and assessment of Annapolis's fleet. Our fleet are the cars we use every day, our public works cars, our police cars, our fire, our harbor master vehicles, and opportunities to electrify. It's not exactly the report in the form that I wanted it to be, so I have to work with them on getting a final report, and hopefully we'll do that in the next couple of weeks, have something final to share with everybody and with council on that, and so we can start using it to as a means to replace our vehicles as their lives as they age out. We had some issues getting electric vehicles, but I think supply chain issues are resolving themselves now, and that's not such an issue anymore. We acquired a couple of vehicles last year, but I think we can do better than that. They were small ones. Let's see, one thing that I do have money for that I need to use this year in this budget cycle before July is our greenhouse gas emissions studies. I think they were performed in like 2000. They're old. I want to say they were done in 2016 or something. They need to be updated. I need to find a contractor to do those. So I have to put together an RFP and probably put that out for bid fairly soon so that I can get that done before June 30th. Need to spend that money. And so we did, the last time we did them, we did one for city buildings. So those would be city owned and operated buildings. And then we did a community greenhouse gas emissions study. So we have that one with Paulina, and then the electric ferry. We just had a meeting today about the electric ferry. We're getting ready to put out the RFP for the design build of the ferry. And then we're working on a group called McLaren that's looking at our landing sites. They're going to start doing the conceptual design for the landing sites. And this is money. We had the ferry was a 3-year grant, and we have to spend the money by 2025. But the mayor wants this done ASAP because he's got 2 years left, and he wants all of these things done before he leaves office. So I've got like I was going to say a fire burning under me, but it's like a bonfire burning under me right now to get everything done.
And I'm not sure if you would know this because it's probably a Racine question, but I noticed the Bird City event mentioned in the document that there'd be a photo contest kicking off in January. So I was wondering if that already started or.
I don't see Racine. Where is she?
Yeah, she hasn't signed on tonight.
Oh, odd. Okay, so Racine, I asked her to send me the final that described everything about it. So she said that she would do that. I think maybe it's sitting in my email. So every year for our Bird City certification, we do an event every year. So we decided this year we would do a photo contest. So it's always something that has to be interactive with the public and educational. So we thought, okay, we'll do a photo contest this year, and we'll do a category for elementary school age and like middle school, middle school through high school, and then an adult category, and make it over the winter so people see, wintering birds. And we'll frame them and put them in City Hall. We already have it reserved, I think March and April. We'll mat them and put them up. And then we have Jack Turner, who you guys may all know. He's Neapolitan. He had a big exhibit in City Hall. Jack is also the chair of the Conservancy Board. And he works for Greenvest. He is a wonderful photographer, especially of birds, and he has agreed to judge it. And Racine I think they're located in Crofton. It's a wildlife store that has agreed to donate the prizes like bird feeders and things like that and we're giving ribbons out on the photographs, but also we have some prizes that we would give out for it. So she just needs me to sign off on this, and we can kick this off here at the end of January, beginning of February, because we have to have time for people to take the pictures and get them up and judge them in time. So we want this all up in City Hall for Earth Day, around that time.
Yeah, it sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah, and the other thing that we have on the, I think it's still on the website, there's a Sustainable Annapolis program that was mostly geared to the businesses, and they had to meet certain criteria to be certified as the sustainable business in Annapolis, and you get like a sticker for your window. It's like woefully out of date. Nobody has, touched this thing in years. And so I had Racine, she's been looking at it, and we need to update the whole thing. And then I want to roll it out again, something we can promote to businesses, because it hasn't been touched in years. And so it's not even up to date. So we're going to update that, and then, launch it, like publicly launch it and push it out. So we can get people like being greener about their practices in general. And we'll have like a bigger sticker they can put in their window that they're a green business in Annapolis. And that's kind of tied into the zero waste initiative. We've been, for several years now, we've done several zero waste programs. We did Plastic Free Annapolis, which was a DNR grant that we mostly worked with the restaurants and bars and hotels about different packaging kinds of things, like the clamshells and compostable utensils and that sort of thing. We gave them options, and we had literature and that sort of thing. And then we did the following year, we did No Butts in the Bay. That was aimed at cigarette butt waste. We had the containers we put up around the city, and they had the stickers that said No Butts in the Bay. That was another DNR grant. And we worked on a zero waste policy that I have to finalize and get the mayor's approval on. And we wanted to make it code, but this is how old this is, 2 years now. They decided they wouldn't let me do it as code. They wanted to make it a city policy. And we've been informally using it as city policy for a while now, but I want to make it citywide, that whenever the city puts on an event, we are supposed to be zero waste. And we have been internally doing that. We know everything we use is compostable now in the city, and we don't use plastic bottles. But now I want to take it further and have the policy approved and sent to all departments, that especially Office of Emergency Management, which is notorious for using plastic bottles, and get rid of all of our plastic bottles and all of our plastic cutlery and everything like that with that throughout the city. And then take it to another level, which is they don't want to make it mandatory, but encouraging everyone who applies for an event permit, having an encouraged list of zero waste practices. And that's what the administration wants to do as a first step, rather than in code say that if you're going to have an event in the city, it has to be zero waste. They're not ready for it yet. So I have it in draft form. I just need to work on that. And the other thing we have done is the transportation department wanted to start composting. We have a contract with Annapolis Compost. They've been picking up compost since October from the transportation department. It's been going really well. It's been popular there. So I'm going to ask if I can take it to every department in the city now and put it in the break rooms so people can take their food scraps to the break rooms, and have a contract with Annapolis Compost throughout the entire city where we can be composting. 2 years ago, maybe it was a year ago, we did a pilot program in Hunt Meadows for curbside food scrap pickup. And the city is considering doing a curbside pickup. We just don't have a facility to take it to, because we need the county to participate with us in order to generate a large enough waste stream to have a facility to process it. You know, we couldn't as a city be able to generate enough of a waste stream to support our own facility. And we've been trying to get the county to participate with us, but they're not. They have contracts with other areas right now that they find works for them, and they're not interested in playing with us right now. So I don't think the Public Works is going to pursue curbside composting just yet, but we could do it within the city, at least the city buildings.
All right. Well, were there any questions? I would like to try to wrap up a little bit early tonight if possible, but will any put it out for any final questions?
No, thank you, Jackie, for that summary. That was good.
Sure.
Good to hear everything.
Yeah, very good. And I know the yacht club likes the fourth Wednesday as well, so that's always.
And I never go to their meetings usually, but I just wanted to hear what Senator Elfreth had to say today. It was interesting. What was I going to say to you guys? Oh, the Chesapeake Bay Trust, that was in my summary too. If you know people that are in nonprofits, and it's open to that the city sends funds to the trust for projects that nonprofits, community groups, churches, others, even individuals can apply for water quality restoration projects. That is open right now. What you have to do is have a site. If you have a project that you want to pursue, a site visit is required. You have to contact the trust for a site visit, for them to come out, look at the site, make recommendations, make sure it's not duplicative of other work that's already going on. And then before you can even put it in an application. So if you're working with a nonprofit or a church group or another homeowners association, it's open. And I think in the summary, it tells you when the dates close for the application. I think in March. The portal will close for applications for the watershed restoration projects, and then awards are made April or May. The city puts in about $300,000 every year. I think we have 300,000 in there right now.
I think this year they added maintenance. Is that right? Is that the same?
Yeah, we did.
Yeah, that's good.
Yep. And the city, unlike the county, we will fund projects that do assessments and studies and design. The county will only fund the shovel-ready projects, but we will fund more than that.
The track one is the watershed assessment planning.
Yeah.
Currently working on my grant application for that.
Okay, good for you. Great. Yeah. So, and then, a lot of these projects can be taken when they get beyond the design phase. You can go to DNR for the big funding for the construction phase. And DNR loves that we do this because we just tee them up for them. And they know that they're all designed and ready to go.
Good.
So spread the word on those if you know of anyone. People will come to us all the time. We're like, oh, we don't know how to do that. We have a project in our community. I'm like, there's a pot of money sitting right there for just these types of projects. People know
I think
about
it's hard for the HO, like those in the HOAs managing that need it. It's hard for them to know
Yeah.
what kind of work can be done. Because like the only reason I can do it is because my background is in construction of stormwater management projects. So like
Yeah.
I'm
And
leading it from my HOA, but they would have no idea how to
yeah,
apply
and I
it.
talked to Jana about this before, and is getting the word out about, because what they do is an informational webinar. They did one in October and maybe one in November. So they always do one a couple months before they open the portal. And sometimes those webinars are a lot of people and sometimes not many at all. And during those webinars, the trust staff are on them, and Department of Public Works from the city and from the county are on those webinars to answer questions. The trust leads them through the process, like how you do this, what kind of projects we're looking at, what are good projects. And then the staff are there to answer projects, like what are we looking for?
Yep.
I talked to Jan about how do you get the word, they need to do their legwork on how they get the word out to people about that.
Yeah, there's definitely, I think it's difficult to get people to know about the option, but then also to understand the solutions and how to write about it in the grant. Because I know another HOA has applied a couple times, but they just don't have the expertise when writing the grant, that's why they're not getting approved for a watershed assessment.
Yeah.
So it's issues on all fronts, I think.
Yeah. I'm going to become a professional grant writer in my retirement.
Oh. And I never hate writing grants, but yeah, it's a real thing.
Yeah. Okay. All right, you guys, if you have any questions on that, update, anytime you guys have concerns, questions, suggestions, just give me a shot. Send me an email, call me.
Thank you, Jackie.
Yep. Thank you.
Thanks, Jeremy. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you everyone for joining us this evening. I will ask if Jenny, maybe you or anyone else that knows Tilly from Annapolis Green, maybe we can try to tee that up for February or see if maybe March would work better, to maybe have that conversation about their priorities, what they're working on for the coming year.
Jackie, you missed that part.
I know they're really big on this whole zero waste thing. And I told them I would work with them on, zero waste. And does anyone here, because I just mentioned I need to do this greenhouse gas report. Does anyone have any experience with contractors in that space?
I can definitely explore some contacts that I have and send you at least some leads.
Yeah, I'm probably gonna have to put out an RFP on it, but I can target, I can definitely send it directly to some certain people and just get some ideas about certain people might be good. And local, local always helps. That's an experience with non-local contractors sometimes.
Is DC local? No.
Yeah, maybe local enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. Baltimore, DC.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that'd be helpful. Thank you, Jenny.
You're welcome.
Okay, everybody have a good night.
All right, thanks everyone. See, I think we need a motion to adjourn.
Oh yeah, you do.
I so motion.
Second.
Second.
All right. Any objections? Or yeah, I'll just do it that way. Hearing no objections, we'll say the aye.